What's up, guys? It's Mr. Wickelhouse again, and this is the second video in our Logic and Proof unit, Unit 2. And this is just working with logical statements. So this is going to tie back to the last video where we were thinking about conditional statements. Okay. So we got some more vocabulary in this video. So we've got something called the negation. Okay, the negation of a statement is denial of a statement formed by adding or removing the word not from a statement. Okay. So, let's think about it. The negation of the statement, it is raining outside. What is the negation of that statement? Well, I hope you're thinking to yourself that the negation of that is it is not raining outside. So the negation is just adding the word not or removing the word not from a statement. Okay. Here's another one that's tied really close to negation is negate. To add or remove the word not from a statement to change its truth value from true to false or vice versa. Okay? So the negation is the actual statement. To negate something is the verb that we're adding or removing the word not in a statement. Okay? Okay. So another vocabulary word is called the converse. So this is a statement formed from a conditional statement by switching the hypothesis and the conclusion. So you're basically taking, if you remember from the conditional statement, that if P then Q, or like I said in the other video, if it is raining outside, then I will use an umbrella. You're just flipping that around. Whatever the conclusion is, you're putting it where the hypothesis is, and wherever the hypothesis is, you're putting where the conclusion is. So you're just flipping things around. So if P then Q would switch around to be if Q then P. So thinking back to what I just said, if it rains outside, then I'll use an umbrella. The converse of that is if I use an umbrella, then it is raining. Okay? So I just took if it is raining, then I use an umbrella and flipped it around. That's all the converse is. Okay. Now we have something else called the inverse. The inverse is a statement formed from a conditional statement by negating the hypothesis and the conclusion. So just like with this one up here, if it is raining outside, then I use an umbrella. Well, the inverse of that would be if it is not raining, then I do not use an umbrella. Okay. Inverse is putting the not in there. Converse is just switching the hypothesis and the conclusion. Okay. Here's some more vocabulary. Contrapositive. The contrapositive of a statement is formed from a conditional statement by taking the inverse of the converse of the statement. So the contrapositive of if P then Q would be the converse, if Q then P, then taking the inverse of that. So if Q then P would become if not Q then not P. Okay? And you're probably sitting there saying to yourself, what are you talking about, Mr. Whittenhouse? All these P's and Q's, you're going to drive me crazy. Well, okay, so we know that the converse before of the statement that we were saying that if it rains then I use an umbrella, we know the converse of that is if I use an umbrella, then it rains. Okay? Well, then the next step of that, to make this the contrapositive from that conditional statement, would be to introduce the not into this. So then the contrapositive is going to be if I do not use an umbrella, then it does not rain. Okay? You see what I did there? So I switched the original statement around. If I use an umbrella, then it rains. And then I just put not in there. So if I do not use an umbrella, then it does not rain. Not too bad. Okay. Here's another vocabulary word. It's called a biconditional statement. This is a statement in which the conditional statement and its converse have the same truth value. So I read the conditional statement, I flip it around to have the converse, and they're true both ways. Okay? A lot of times you'll see these statements written as an if and only if, and if they're true both ways, then they're definitions. Okay? So an example of a biconditional statement is a triangle is isosceles if and only if it has two congruent sides. So isosceles triangles have two congruent sides, we know that. But if I have a triangle with two congruent sides, then it has to be an isosceles triangle. So it's true both ways no matter how I read it. Okay? Like I said, definitions are examples of biconditional statements. Alright? So here's something to think about. So consider the following statement. X equals 3 if and only if x squared equals 9. I want you guys to take some time to yourself and think about this. Is this a biconditional statement? And is the statement a true statement? Okay, so think about both of those things, and we'll talk about that in class. Okay? Alright. The last little part that we need to think about are some symbols that you need to know. It'll make it easier for you to think about these conditional, biconditional, make them easier to write. Okay? So, I've got this little arrow. It's like I'm just going to the next thing. It's just pointing to the right. So this symbol is used to represent the conditional statement. So for example, if P then Q would be written as P then Q. Okay? So this arrow in here is just a way to abbreviate this if P then Q, or this conditional statement. Okay? When we're talking in logic, we've got this little squiggle here, but this symbol is used to represent a negation. So if I said if not P, then not Q, I could write that as with the squiggle and the P, then the squiggle and the Q. Okay, so if not P, then not Q. Okay? Alright. If you see this little caret between two symbols, then this symbol is used to write the word and. Okay. So for example, I would say P and Q. Okay. The one that this is flipped upside down or it looks like a V, this is the symbol that I use to write the word or. So an example of that would be P or Q. So PVQ is P or Q. Another little interesting symbol is the symbol with the 3 dots here, and that's a symbol that I would use to write the word therefore. So I would do ... P, in other words, therefore P. Okay. Last one. This last one is the double-sided arrow. This is used for the phrase if and only if. So for example, I would say P if and only if Q. Okay? So those are all the things, all the little symbols and stuff that we would be using for the most part, and they might pop up from time to time, so I wanted to talk about them. That's all I've got for this video, guys. I will talk to you later.